Lesson 1, Unit 1. Scope Management. Scope management is the process where the activities, outputs, outcomes, and goals are identified, defined, and controlled. Scope is a term used in the management of projects to refer to the totality of the work required to produce them. It is a description of all the work that needs to be accomplished to deliver a product or a service. Scope also defines the boundaries of the project and defines what the project will deliver and what it will not deliver. One of the main causes for project failure is the poor management of project scope. This usually occurs when there is not a good definition of the project scope, no agreement with the stakeholders on the scope of the project, and the lack of a good scope management process that can avoid inclusion of unauthorized work to the project. This is also known as scope creep. Scope creep in project management refers to changes, continuous or uncontrolled growth in a project's scope at any point after the project begins. It is a tendency to include more tasks than originally specified, which often leads to higher than planned project costs and an extension of the initial completion date. One of the goals of scope management is to control scope creep. Changes to scope in a project are always expected. There is no project that hasn't had a scope change, but changes to the scope need to be managed since they can have a direct impact to the time and cost to complete the project. Changes can be beneficial when they contribute to achieve the project objectives and help increase the quality of the deliverables. Changes can come from key stakeholders, such as the beneficiaries and partners, the project team, the donor, and even the organization's management. One of the main requirements of scope management is that management and or the donor must approve all changes to the project scope before any action is made in the project. Unauthorized changes can be costly and time-consuming. Scope management is a continuous process of planning, doing, checking, and adapting the process for the next cycle. The process requires a series of inputs that will produce specific outputs. The scope management process consists of 4 steps. First step is to plan, which is the definition of scope of all the work the project will do and develop the plans to control changes to the project scope. The next step is to do, which is the assignment of the scope of work to the project staff, consultants, partners, or other groups that will do the work. Next is check, which is the verification that the scope and ensuring that all the work is done according to the specifications. And adapt, which is modifying the scope according to the approved scope changes. The 4 steps require the following inputs: the project contract or agreement between the contracting organization and the donor, which includes the general purpose and goal of the project, as well as the restrictions imposed by the donor. The project log frame that describes the project objectives and indicators to track progress. Historical information from similar projects and lessons learned, and expert advice from subject matter experts on specific technical areas of the project, and finally, information from project beneficiaries. The process produces the following outputs: the project scope statement, which is a document that defines the elements that are part of the project and those that are outside the project. This document helps build an understanding of what the project aims to achieve. The work breakdown structure, or WBS, which is a complete list of all the activities of the project. The scope change control plan, which describes the steps to follow when requesting any changes, including who can authorize the changes and the process to incorporate them into the scope.